This is Leisha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast. And wow, have we got a coup today? We've stolen somebody, another big name who runs their own podcast. And I'm sure that if you're clicking on this link, you've done so because you already are fully aware of who this incredible person is that I've got so much time and respect for. And this has only taken, about 20 months or something in the making for you to come on. So we would love to welcome to our global community today Hishem Azzouz, who is the founder of Recruitment Mentors and fellow podcast host and just general amazing human being. Welcome to today, Hishem. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I really appreciate the kind words and appreciate the invite.
It's true. I mean, honestly, if anyone isn't fully aware of who you are, then where have you been hiding the last few years? But for those who possibly don't know who you are, if they're maybe in some nook and cranny somewhere, just give us a brief synopsis of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so where a lot of people know me is over the last nearly 5 years now, I've hosted a podcast which was originally called the Recruitment Rollercoaster Podcast, which is now the Recruitment Mentors Podcast, where every single week I sit down with either a high-performing recruiter or recruitment entrepreneur to sort of deconstruct how they got to where they got to, what they learned along the way, and those challenges. Have over 400 episodes. Would absolutely recommend checking it out. And then the other thing that I do, which is the business that I'm building, is called Recruitment Mentors. And really quite simply, that's an all-in-one training development platform where we partner with ambitious recruiters and recruitment founders who want to unlock the full potential of their teams.
It's amazing. And you can see why I've invited Hishem on, everyone. And I would just like to say, I mean, I'm a huge devourer of podcasts. All I do is listen to podcasts pretty much sort of 7 days a week when I'm walking and everything. And yours is an absolute go-to. I think you've had some tremendous guests on there. And what I like about the whole culture of your podcast is that people do tend to share very honest, transparent, and very vulnerable stories about their journeys. And I think that's what's kept people so connected. And you also you failed to mention, which I know you will do, your live show in 2022 in Manchester. And I know that you've got some coming up or have been in 2023. They're just brilliant, where you actually get your guests to actually in front of a live audience. Brilliant.
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot from the last one in Manchester.
Oh,
close the bar when we actually do the panel discussion as well.
Yes,
the learnings. There
was quite a lot of heckling. I have to say, I'm not particularly proud of my Manc brethren. Come on, have a bit of decorum. No, it was brilliant. And I think what is real testament is that that people genuinely want to be part of anything that you create, because you do just have I think you've got the right intention, the right purpose of why you're doing these things. And I love what the Recruitment Mentors is about. So I'm pretty sure that from this episode today, you're going to hopefully it will connect you to other leaders in the globe who want to do more to lock people in with the training and development that the Recruitment Mentors does, but also just go and listen to that's a real back catalogue. That 400, that's going some. We're at almost 200, so I know that's a real lot of hard work.
That's amazing.
So given that, and I'm glad that we've contextualized this at the start, I mean, you must have had some episodes where you've come off and thought, blimey, was not expecting that. And this is a really difficult thing to possibly answer, but I'm going to ask it you anyway. So from that sort of rear view mirror, what would you say some of your biggest surprise learns have been from some of the leaders that you've interviewed over the years?
Yeah, so I think firstly, like when I started the podcast nearly 5 years ago, like I was in the business of 8 people, and sort of when I had this idea and it was a bit of a hunch, I was willing to take action. The sort of initial response was very much like, why would other recruiters share for other recruiters to benefit? And obviously, yeah, you've been in the game much longer than me, but it's obviously changed a lot. But I think the first sort of surprise is just the willingness of people to share their journey and their story, and knowing that will likely help other people in our industry. So I think firstly, sort of just the willingness to share of a lot of the people that I sit down with, because historically our industry has been very sort of competitive with one another. But yeah, just a big believer that the more collaborating that we do, the more improving that we could do as a collective. So I think that's the first thing. And then I'll be honest, I think one of the most surprising things is that all of the people that I've sat down with that have been massively successful would be people that don't necessarily have anything particularly special. which I really like.
Me too.
In the sense that, I don't know, I just think this is what's really cool about our industry, the fact that there's a lot that you can control, there's a lot that you can't control. But I think a lot of the people that have sat down that have been super impressive, that I've grown my network with, they're all people that typically you can relate to, that most of the time are pretty humble about how they got to where they got to. And it just makes things feel attainable. It makes sort of things feel like almost anything is possible. So yeah, I'd say that's one of the things. There definitely isn't like a special ingredient.
No, definitely. Well, just on that very point there, I think that's reflected back from you because you're so down to earth. So I think that having been a listener and a fan for a very long time, I've been listening to yours probably the longest in terms of out of all the ones out there, that you're not putting them on a pedestal, you're not asking them questions in awe. And I'm not saying that other people do, but I think that your very pragmatic style allows them to feel comfortable to talk just openly and honestly. And I totally agree with you. Anything's attainable. And I think your first response actually made me gave me the goosebumps, because I think you're probably right. I think pre-pandemic, if you'd have been an outsider looking into our industry, you'd have seen, absolutely competitive, best practice in silos, but there was very rare occasions where people would openly talk about and share their ideas, maybe apart from being in community groups like TRN and that kind of thing. It was never really advocated. And I think that's where I think we as an industry have shown that actually we are much greater together, working together to harmonise together to make a much better industry. So I think that if those are your two biggest learns, then that bodes very well if that's creating the best industry that we can, which ultimately is what it's about, surely.
Yeah, 100%. It's what's driven a lot of my ideas, driven what I'm doing at Recruitment Mentors. But I think one of the beliefs that I have is one of the only ways that you can sort of shortcut your skill development is by learning from people that have been exactly where you are, and a couple of steps ahead. And there's so many recruiters that have been where, if you're listening right now and you're having a difficult period, you're early on in your career, there's thousands of people that have been in your exact shoes today and have come out the other side and become top performers, become sort of inspiring leaders, maybe even start their own business. So I think the more sharing that we could do, the more sort of raising the standards that we could do together.
We have more in common than we don't, and I think that's really reticent of that. And absolutely. So I'm interested to know, in terms of benchmarking, I don't know what your barrier to entry is, but how do you decide who makes a good mentor for recruitment mentors? And generally, what do you think a good mentor looks like within recruitment specifically?
Yeah, we've been on a bit of a journey, if I'm honest. So I think obviously the name speaks for itself. Our sort of USP and secret sources are all the people, 95% of people that we partner with to deliver the training on our platform are current top performers. We just found that recruiters are a lot more confident to consistently spend time on their skill development when they're learning from people that have been there and done it. I think a lot of recruiters have had training experiences where they found themselves in a room learning from someone that did the job 5, 10, 15 years ago. And that just doesn't quite resonate with people. I think a lot of people have had poor training experiences and found the things that they're learning not current, not useful for today's market. So that's where the original name come from. But what we sort of evolved and we're going to continue to grow up as a business is to become a sort of proper learning solution and training platform. So when we say sort of mentor, these are people that have contributed on our platform. They've contributed in the form of a training session. Training session could either be a bite-sized session, which is up to 30 minutes, or it could be a live learning session, which people can attend live and it's interactive. So just to be clear on that, it isn't there isn't any sort of mentoring going on, or we don't match people. It's basically providing current, practical, modern training for recruiters to use in today's market. So what we've sort of gone for, be interested to get what you think, but what we sort of based it off is, first and foremost, these are people that have a track record of going from delivery, associate, whatever, and they progress the ranks to head of, principal, director, maybe start their own business. One of the great things about our industry is that it's a meritocracy. So if they've sort of progressed the ranks in one company, maybe two companies over a long period of time, then they've got there because they've worked hard and they've over exceeded expectations. So I think the first and most important thing is a track record. They've worked in the industry for 5+ years as a minimum. They're still doing a job. They're still at the forefront of their markets. And they're like the core bits. And then the other part is we want to be known for something that's known for providing education on good consultative recruitment. So all of these people have a background of working in those types of environments rather than transactional recruitment, I think is the best way to sort of compare it to.
And you know, I think that in terms of getting my stance on it, I think that the learning and development side of recruitment needed disrupting. And I'm going to be really a bit contentious actually, because I've got some really good friends who are long-standing trainers, and I'm not singling anybody out, by the way. I'm just saying, generally speaking, what you have set as your sort of entry point is that these people are doing the job, are successful right now with what's working right now in a consultative environment. And I think that's what aspirational mentoring should be. Not, oh, well, I was, 20 years ago, I was the top biller. It's like, well, what was working even 2 years ago isn't going to be working in 2 years' time. So I love that you're keeping it very relevant for now. And I can see that's why you have had such phenomenal growth and success. So in terms of, those listening now who are, aspiring leaders who maybe aren't going to be part of the platform per se, what would you say in terms, and sort of I'm tying this in with one of your earlier answers. You said that the top billers aren't particularly anything special. So if you were to write a recipe, what would the ingredients be for a top biller? How do we spot these top billers? How do we know when we're interviewing somebody whether they are going to be a future top biller?
No, yeah, something I thought a lot about, because I'm going to be doing a talk at the Recruitment Expo about this basically. I still need to flush it all out, but
okay.
One of the first questions I ask at the beginning of every single podcast episode is, what are the characteristics and traits of a highly successful recruiter in today's market? So I'm going to sort of curate all of the most common answers that I get right, because I'm really interested to see the common answers. But what I'd probably boil it down to is, firstly, how coachable are they? So I think most people that we've partnered with are absolutely obsessed with getting better every single day. How can I get 1% better at this? How can I improve on yesterday? And these are all people that are willing to listen back to their calls. They're willing to look at themselves in the mirror and go, how can I do that better? So I think the first thing is coachability. Can I take feedback? Can they be coached? And are they willing to, sometimes maybe take difficult feedback, but it's all centered around helping them improve. So I think combined with that as well is also, like I just said, just a real willingness to continuously improve. That is a big part. I think most top performers that I've met always think there's something that they can learn. They never think that I've completed recruitment, or are aware that they don't want to get complacent. So always willing to learn. And then the other things, it's going to be the typical stuff like resilience, bounce back ability, whatever you want to call it. Do they have the ability to take something on the chin, like you were just telling me, like you had some setbacks recently, being able to brush yourself off and take action and move forward, rather than that you letting that affect you for the rest of the week, is obviously a massive thing in recruitment. And then I picked this up recently and I actually really liked it. This won't be relevant for everyone, but I think you've probably met a lot of top performers that had this. But recently interviewed someone called Lewis, and he said one of the other things that he always looks for is someone that has a point to prove. And I really like that. So it could be, I have a chip on my shoulder because I'm entering the industry at 25 years old and this has to work. I have to give it my all. I have to sort of prove, maybe even to others to start, that this has to work, or just a point to prove. I think recruitment's hard. And if you don't feel like you've got a point to prove, or there's something really in it for you, then there's always going to be an easier option for you to leave the industry and go build a career somewhere else. So there's some of the things, but I
think you've nailed it. And I'm sorry, I have to just pause at I've completed recruitment, because that's just made me want to absolutely wet myself. That's hilarious. Like I've been doing it nearly 25 years and I'm not even nearly there. I think, to summarize what you've said, open mindset, that willingness to learn. Can I also add a couple to this? Because obviously I was a top performer, I have been a top performer, but I interview a lot of top performers. I'm a rectorate, that's what I do. is I think that they have a sense of curiosity and inquisitiveness that other people maybe don't have. They will ask the questions that other people won't have thought of. That's a really big piece of feedback that I tend to get, because they're the ones that are just relentless with that curiosity, almost to the point of obsession, because they're continually learning. It all ties back into this sort of continuous improvement.
Yeah, curiosity is a good one. That's a good one.
And I have to put this out there, and anyone that thinks you can get to being top biller without doing this, it is that willingness to work that little bit harder and that little bit longer.
Yeah, work ethic, 100%.
It's just and it's become a bit of this sort of positive toxicity about sitting at your desk. We kind of lost that in COVID. And I'm not contradicting all the well-being and mental health sort of prowess that we've all talked about and we've all done to transform the well-being of us generally. But actually, the reality is, if you're sat next to a top biller, they will have put in more hours than anyone else. They will have worked harder and smarter than anyone else. And that's
work ethic is it. Yeah, like no, I'm completely with you on this. I did a post about it. Like you sit down with anyone that's been successful, they've had to make sacrifices and they've had to work hard. I think particularly on, obviously we're going into sort of online social dynamics right now, but like a lot of the time, a lot of the people either sort of preaching the work-life balance or a huge sort of noises around it oftentimes are people that have been successful. And I just find that interesting, right? They're sort of talking from a perspective of like, well, I've now got my money, I've now achieved the things that I want, so yeah, work-life balance is really important, but don't ask me how much time I had to sacrifice with spending time with my kids and these things, right? But I think also it's just like obviously, in today's world, it's very easy to want the things and to see Leisha's life on Instagram, and it looks like she's built a great business and these things. I want that. Like, that's what I want. My friends who are my age have got that. Like, I deserve that. Absolutely deserve that. But don't think for a second I have to work hard for it. So I think that is the challenge of like wanting. It comes down to what you want at the end of the day, what you want to achieve. If you want to be a 500 grand, 800 grand biller, I guarantee you that requires work ethic, and you will struggle extremely to achieve that if you finish on time every single day, you work a 4-day working week, despite how smart you might work. Work ethic is part of the recipe. What
Hishem just said, absolutely, because we get a lot. I know we've got probably very similar listener profiles. It's a lot of people that are entry level. What you've just said there is in bucket loads, 100%. How excited are you about ChatGPT?
Yeah, we've been sort of playing around this. I know that was one of the things. So like for me, I just think it's all about tech's all about enabling you to be better, or enabling you to innovate, or enabling you to do more of the job that you're better at. So I think it's just like, I think one of the best things that you could do is like, don't be that person who is like just sort of shut down from things. Experiment, try it. It's worth doing. I think one of the most common things that I heard sort of people speak about on my conversations recently is, could we use chat GPT to format our CVs? And that's the perfect type of innovation to look at it, rather than I don't need to get into the conversation of, is it going to replace this, replace that? It's more about how it can enable us to do more of the job that we're better at. That's what it's all about.
You definitely need to sort of copyright that, because that's exactly how I see it as well. It's not a threat to us, it's about how it enables us to be better at what we do, and in terms of the human interaction. So obviously a large part of what I do is ensuring that our listeners who are particularly in the leadership capacity are sort of learning from our guests to make sure that they're keeping their staff and their teams engaged, retained and happy, and sort of developing further. So what do you think what's the single most thing that they need to be doing this next year, couple of years, to ensure that they are keeping their teams retained and happy?
Yeah, so a couple of things on this, because I thought about this and hopefully this will be valuable. So I think the first thing, the word that I use is clarity. So if you're a leader right now and you have consultants in your team, if you were to pull each individual one of them in the room and say to them, do you know how you get to your next promotion? If they can't answer that with complete clarity and conviction, then you've got some work to do.
Yep.
So I think firstly, clarity on career pathways and progression. As you'll know, everyone wants progression. Everyone wants to feel like they're going in the right direction. So the first thing is, as a leader, have you made it as clear as possible for your consultants to know and understand how they get to the next step? How are they moving forward? Is that done on the number of deals they need to do? Is it done on billings that they do? But you need to have complete clarity on your consultants need to have complete clarity on how they move forward and how they progress their career, firstly. Then I think the other part to it, besides having the clarity in the career pathways, and I think on that, actually, sorry, just side note, I think what's really important is spoken to quite a lot of top performers recently. We're talking the top performers in an entire company, an organization of 30, 50 size recruitment agency. And they have felt that when they can progress their careers, management and leadership, that is one of the quickest ways to lose some of your best performers and top performers. So you absolutely need to build out a career pathway for Alicia, the recruiter, that does not want to go into management. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people don't enjoy it, despite how much training they get. They don't have the patience. They don't want to do it. And that's absolutely fine. So I think if you make your top performers feel like the only way that they can move forward, progress is through management, you're going to lose people. So I think make sure that you've got clear career pathways for management, obviously, but also for people that maybe want to end up as a director, but don't want to be managing people. They maybe get involved in the strategic vision of the company. They might get involved in parts of the business development strategy, or just how else can we play to their strengths and have a clear career pathway for people that isn't leadership. So I think, career pathways, clarity is really important. And then the other part, just because this is what I speak to a lot of companies about, is if you completely rely on your consultants to solely learn on the job and learn on the pitch 100% of the time, they will go elsewhere at some point. So, and this is really common. So I think, don't just rely on your guys to solely learn on the job to improve. So some of the things that you can do that you might be missing right now is you need to create an intentional space for your consultants to learn, either weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. Create an intentional space to learn. And the reason why this is so important is if you are a leader and you have an experienced leadership team, that means you've probably got a bunch of great experience in your four walls. So we want to make sure that everyone is getting the most out of that and utilizing it. So if you're just if you just feel like, well, my guys and girls coming up to me, ask for help, these things, that's the wrong way to sort of approach it, because that requires a lot of courage for people to ask for help, to seek for help. So one of the easiest ways that you can do, and we've helped a bunch of our customers integrate this in their working weeks or every other week, and it's been really impactful, where create an intentional space to learn, call it a round table, call it a group learning session, whatever, and you get into a room together and you share best practice, you share what's working, you share your challenges, and what that enables you to do as an experienced leader and a person in that business is to help more people at once, firstly, but to make sure that your experience and the challenges that you've been through, other people can learn from, rather than just on an individual basis hoping that people ask for help. So I think the other part is use your experience in your four walls, create an intentional space to learn. Don't just rely on your people to learn solely on the job, because I think if you do that, they will be looking elsewhere to think that there's another platform, another business that could help me get to where I want to. But you might have the experience in your organization to actually help get these people to where they got to. But you're just, I appreciate leadership teams are spread thin. They are typically, have their own number, have their own performance. So I understand. But one of the easy wins that you could do is create that intentional space to learn. And that's been a real big positive for a lot of our customers. I
absolutely love that. And I tell you, if you're not doing any of those things, your staff are going to be calling me or the likes of me. It's as simple as that, because that is why they call a rec to rec. That is why people become disenchanted. They just feel totally disconnected. And actually, you can create, I love this intentional space. That just feels so collaborative and, easy to do, obviously working with partners like yourself, but you could also create internal champions. Just think about the internal sort of customers that you've got there, somebody that's particularly good at selling retainers, somebody that's really amazing at getting stuff on your database, somebody that's brilliant at writing blogs or doing TikTok, whatever it might be. You can create internal champions. You've got all the collateral there potentially. So I love all those insights, but I knew that award because of the people that you're speaking to. It must just feel such an honourable position to be in, Hishem.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel super privileged.
Yeah, I bet you do. I bet you pinch yourself every day. Can we just say a particular well done to your puppy, who is not on screen or in audio, but has behaved impeccably in his little cage.
Napping in his crate, yeah.
Oh, he nearly came on, guys, but we decided that it was probably best not to. But thank you so much. This is just going to be nugget after nugget, and we know how busy you are. So thank you so much for making time for our audience today and joining us on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast.
Thanks for having me.